What's up, guys? It's John back with another video. I apologize for not posting last week. I know I said this would be a weekly thing, but just technological difficulties with editing and whatnot kept me from posting a video last week. But I am alive and okay, and I'm happy to be back with a new video. In this video, I'm going to cover 3 stories that I wrote as opposed to the usual 4, but I promise they are 3 very solid stories. And per usual, my music and film recommendations will be coming out at the end of the video, so please stay tuned for that, and thank you guys so much for watching. Let's get into it. So the first piece I want to talk about is one that I wrote about the life and legacy of Doug Kenny, who was the co-founder of National Lampoon magazine, as well as one of the co-writers on Animal House and Caddyshack. Kenny was born in West Palm Beach, Florida in 1946, but he was raised in Ohio. He attended Gilmore Academy as well as Harvard University, where he served as the editor of the Harvard Lampoon. In 1970, after having graduated from Harvard, Kenny founded National Lampoon magazine with his friends Henry Beard and Robert Hoffman, helping to usher in the new wave of darker comedy in the 1970s. Much of the early material in National Lampoon came from Doug Kenny himself, who was responsible for a lot of the surreal, countercultural humor that was found in the magazine. Pieces such as the 1964 high school yearbook parody, as well as the regular feature of Kenny's Mrs. Agnew's Diary, helped to cement his status as an innovator in comedic writing. After moving to Los Angeles, Kenny co-wrote the screenplay for National Lampoon's Animal House in 1978, which would become the highest-grossing comedy film of all time up to that point. Riding on the success of Animal House, Kenny helped co-write the screenplay for Caddyshack, which came out in 1980 and was commercially successful, but very personally challenging for Kenny. Despite his success, Kenny struggled with substance abuse, as well as doubts about his talent and the pressures of fame. On August 27, 1980, at the age of 33, Doug Kenny died after falling from a 35-foot cliff in Kauai, Hawaii. His death was ruled accidental by police. A note was found in Kenny's hotel room that read, "These are some of the happiest days I've ever ignored," which many believe was a reference to his inner struggles. Despite his tragic death, Kenny has left a lasting impact on American comedy. His life and work have been chronicled in books such as A Futile and Stupid Gesture by Josh Karp, which was actually adapted into a movie of the same name on Netflix. National Lampoon launched the careers of many legendary comedians, all of which are eternally indebted to the genius of Doug Kenny. The next piece I want to talk about is one I wrote about the 10-episode documentary television series Playing for Peanuts. Playing for Peanuts follows the South Georgia Peanuts, who were an independent baseball team in the South Coast League in 2007. The series provides an inside look at the lowest level of professional baseball, which is independent baseball, showing the trials and tribulations ranging from the clubhouse to the dugout and the game-to-game, day-to-day realities of the sport. The show centers around the manager of the Peanuts, Wally Backman, who had won the World Series with the Mets as their second baseman in 1986, and who had been fired as the manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks just 3 years prior. By following the team for a full season, the documentary really captures the grind of travel, the challenges of life in independent baseball, as well as the passion that these players have for the game. Today, the documentary is probably one of the most underrated and underappreciated baseball documentaries of all time, and I highly recommend that anybody who cares for the sport, even in the slightest, should watch it. The last piece I want to talk about is one I wrote about Paul McCartney, Man on the Run, which is a recent 2025 feature-length documentary. The film chronicles the personal and artistic journey of Paul McCartney in the 1970s in the wake of the Beatles' breakup, as well as the formation of his new band, Wings. The documentary explores McCartney's struggles to redefine his creativity in the wake of the Beatles' breakup, as well as his fears that he may not be able to write music that is as meaningful as before. McCartney's relationship with Linda Eastman, both as his wife and as a band member in Wings, is touched upon heavily and is a key narrative talking point. The documentary highlights Wings' trajectory from mixed critical reception early on to tremendous commercial success with projects like Band on the Run. It was with Wings' more commercially successful projects that McCartney began working to gain acceptance beyond his Beatles legacy. The documentary also touches upon Sir Paul's relationship with John Lennon, a relationship that was very hostile after the breakup, but was reconciled by the time John Lennon was murdered in 1980. The documentary proves that Sir Paul McCartney is a genius, regardless of whether or not he's in the Beatles or doing solo work or doing work with Wings. Cheers to Sir Paul McCartney, one of the greatest songwriters of all time. I highly recommend any Beatle fan to watch this new documentary. For this week's song recommendation, I recommend Lorelei, which is a 1984 track by the Scottish rock band Cocteau Twins. For this week's album recommendation, I recommend Pixel Bath, which is a 2020 studio album by Mexican-American experimental pop act Gene Dawson, who I love and have seen live. I worship him. God bless him. And lastly, for this week's film recommendation, I recommend Au revoir les enfants, pardon my French, but it is a 1987 French autobiographical film directed by Louis Malle. So that's this week's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and once again, I want to apologize for not posting a video last week. I will try to be more consistent in the coming weeks and months and try to improve these videos and get better and better and give you guys better content. So thank you guys for joining in on this ride and for listening to these stories and for taking interest. And yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate all the support. So yeah, I'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much.